When we look at classical ruins, we assume we're seeing the physical remains of lived human experience. But the underlying data suggests these structures weren't built by hands. They were generated by a system. Looking closely at the historical record reveals logical seams. When a royal lineage or a recorded war begins to dissolve into binary patterns, we aren't seeing a loss of information, but the manifestation of a system error. To understand our past, we have to adopt the vocabulary of software analysis. We're looking for copy-paste failures and reused assets, moments where the global algorithm recycled the same data to fill the gaps in our narrative. Approaching our origins this way changes everything. History stops being a document we read and becomes code that we can finally debug. Mathematician Anatoly Fomenko observed that supposedly ancient events share a statistical profile with medieval ones. The descriptions of battles, lengths of reigns, and social upheavals are exact duplicates, shifted backward on the timeline by 1,000 years or more. These duplicates didn't happen by accident. Figures like Scaliger and Petavius, backed by the Vatican and the Romanovs, acted as the architects of this forgery, padding the timeline to manufacture a sense of ancient legitimacy for their own era. When the duplicate data is stripped away, the archive collapses into a condensed window. The vast majority of well-known historical events actually took place between 1000 and 1500 AD. This data audit reveals that thousands of years of antiquity are a phantom timeline, a secondary layer of code generated to make the world feel older than it actually is. Within this reconstructed timeline, a specific anomaly keeps appearing: Tartaria. It's described as an advanced Eurasian empire that occupied the peak of the Great Horde before vanishing in a reset catastrophe. Proponents of the Mudflood theory point to the world's star forts and resonant architecture as remnants of this civilization. They argue that modern elites buried this history to hoard the empire's free energy technology. Antique cartography frequently labels a vast region of the East as Great Tartaria. For many, these labels and the accompanying illustrations of grand architecture serve as proof of a deleted global superpower. But we have to consider a different possibility. Is Tartaria a suppressed civilization or a recurring subroutine in the human psychological dataset? The system seems to run a specific script whenever it outputs the story of a lost high civilization. We can track this as PSYALG001. The algorithm follows 4 predictable stages: the Golden Age, the catastrophe, the cover-up, and finally, a deep collective longing. It is a closed narrative loop designed to trigger specific user responses. Comparing the datasets for Atlantis and Tartaria shows they share the same DNA. From the advanced resonant architecture to the elite-driven cover-up, the details aren't just similar, they are identical lines of code. By documenting these patterns, Fomenko serves a role similar to Plato. Both men are channeling the same philosophical archetype, providing a narrative framework for a world that feels incomplete. Tartaria is Atlantis 2.0. It's a viral narrative loop that exploits user desire for a lost utopian past, rather than a physical empire that was actually deleted. If official history is padded with duplicates and alternative history is a narrative loop, then neither account represents an objective reality. When the historical record is this consistently forged and mathematically repetitive, it suggests the environment itself is constructed. Mario Arndt's research indicates we are living within a simulation, where history is a generated variable. The simulation didn't begin in the ancient past. The internal clocks point to the Renaissance as System.Init, the official boot sequence where real-time history actually began. The 16th century is ground zero for the active execution of our world's code. Everything we think we know about the deep past is part of a different type of data. Antiquity and the Middle Ages function as a lore file, a pre-rendered backstory programmed into the system to give us context. These events weren't lived in real time. They are background data designed to provide our world with a sense of depth. Because Tartaria is placed before the Renaissance, it exists only within this pre-rendered backstory. It never transitioned into the active simulation. It is a piece of unplayed, unlived fiction. The structure of our history is a linear transition. a locked lore file that ends the moment the Renaissance start sequence is triggered. Stop hunting for secrets in a past that never ran. You are an avatar in a post-Renaissance environment, and Tartaria is just unplayed fiction in the system's source code.